Welcome to Burn Rate and Beyond. My name is Chad Folst, and I'm here with the always smiling Jeffrey Mazza,
Hello, how are you?
and we are here today to talk about our what we call the CFO tip of the week, tip of the month. Sometimes we do it weekly, sometimes we do it monthly. Where the topic today is um, good habits around leadership and audits. So we're just going to kind of jump in and see what we got going on. I guess, Jeff, this is a good topic. Uh, for There's not really a season for that. Like we're getting into the holiday season, so you're always thinking about these things that happen once a year. And part of the topic is audits, but I feel like this is a topic that's good all year round. What's your angle on that?
Yeah, and I think when people think of audits, it's that painfulness of you're going through an audit, and I don't think it is a seasonal I would say area, but it's just having like being kind of that audit ready throughout all parts of the year, and what I guess does that mean, right? And it's really just having the ducks are aligned and accounts are reconciled and you have processes and documentation and really that a little painful to put it in place in the beginning, but once it's there, it's an upkeep and you just really have it and they're not painful anymore, I should say. So just having everything all aligned, call it ducks aligned, but just all year round, it's good practice, good to do that, and it makes the company a little bit more efficient, I should say. But
Hmm.
but
I
yeah,
agree.
well, I guess what do you think, Chad?
Yeah,
What's
I mean, there's well, audits generally only happen once a year, but what is a good practice, and we've implemented with a couple different clients, is the concept of a mini audit where you just kind of not necessarily don't it's not necessarily as rigorous, but just at 1 month or one account or one process in the business, and you're just like, okay, let's just go through it. I think what's that saying from soup to nuts?
Mhm.
Just the whole thing, and see how well documented it is, see how good the backup is if we want to do some tracing or some vouching. And I think it's a good exercise to get the team involved in because the operations team will also see the consequences of their actions of the day to day on different parts of it. So I think that's a really good one that can be done just from time to time to keep things keep the what do you call that, the finely tuned machine running well. Um,
I agree.
yeah. So the other thing, I guess, if you had to choose one or two um, techniques to build clean systems, like a clean system that just kind of uh, helps people, helps the team be ready. What would you choose from there?
Well, I think, a couple things come to mind, but even just having like, some people have a month-end close checklist, right? And that's,
Hmm.
I think, important, but having a list of some sort just to make sure, like, would put some thought into it, right? Sit down and just say, well, if you're not sure what an audit is or what they ask for, then I'm sure you can find something online, or if you have gone through it, you're going to know what they're going to look for. Um, but ultimately, it's just, for me, it's just making sure the accounts are reconciled monthly, and the balance sheet accounts are reconciled, and and even just having a good checklist where you are reconciling that has those work papers and support. I mean, 80% of that audit pain goes away, I should say.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
for me, just starting off with those reconciliations, having the support, right? Because we want to make sure whoever's looking at it, pulling someone off the street, that they can look at those numbers and say, hey, this is how you got it, and have the support. And that's a big part of that process too. So I would say number one is just having good checklist, but also having those accounts reconciled with the proper support on it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for
You have a
sure.
different view, Chad? Yeah.
Well, I guess I was going to ask you, one of the bullet points that came up here in the prep process was the concept of cloud accounting platforms with audit trails. And I was like, there's days where I'm like, yeah, that's great. Other days where I'm like, I don't know if that matters. What's your thoughts about that one, the cloud
Well, I
accounting?
think there's like when you hear like the audit trails, I like that functionality, right? You can kind of see, you might come across an entry where you're like, this is 2 years ago. I don't know what this is. And it's like, well, oh, looks like, Bill or Janet made the entry and let's go talk to them, right? They may or not, may not know what that is, but they might have some insights into that. as well. And that's how I look at that functionality of just you kind of see who's touching these the books. You know, right? And even
Yeah,
whoever
so
like a fraudulent one too, you could be like, "Well, so and so was in there," and it gives insights though.
I see. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, the idea of the platform just having creating its own audit trail through the IP address and the login validation to understand who's doing what, when, where, and how. So that's I was thinking more along the lines of all the cloud systems. Do you use Google Drive to save your files? Do you scan your receipts?
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, the audit trail for sure inside of an online accounting platform is pretty exciting. Well, good stuff. I guess the next thing here is the concept of like other good habits to to develop on a regular basis. If it's not just audit, it's also just general financially related. Um, because one of the concepts that we've talked about here before is the concept of being a financial leader without having to be the CFO or a CPA or an accountant or whatever. So you could lead financially even if you're not an expert at it. And
Mhm.
there's some things that the founders and CEOs can do to help with that process. So I guess let's just kind of jump in there. What are your thoughts around that?
Like the good processes, really. And I think because like you mentioned, this is a once a year kind of exercise. I mean, unless you're a public company, I guess. But
Hmm.
but even then, for the most part, it's like, hey, we're going through this process every single year. But if it, I almost look at it as like that's like the end goal. But if you're doing these little steps every single month, that's part of the process, which is closing the books regularly, having the proper support, um, right? Just kind of keeping a lot of that documentation for contracts, invoices, the payroll data and statements, right? I mean, just having that part of the process on a monthly basis makes this annual process a lot easier, right? Because you're gonna get this list, and you might say, hey, this is a pretty daunting list, but if this is done on a monthly basis in terms of keeping all this information and documentation, it goes a lot faster, right? And they might still
Hmm.
have questions about what's this, what's that, but at least you have it instead of scrambling, which I think a lot of people do, because they're busy in the day to day, and then they have to deal with all the audit requests, and it's like, oh my God, it's overwhelming. But just having it done on a monthly basis consistently makes it smoother, faster, a lot easier. So
Excellent.
yeah, I
Excellent.
mean, even from your experience, Chad, I mean, I don't know if you kind of have some different views on that too.
Yeah, I guess when I was thinking about was sort of transitioning, well, just the idea that like the monthly close is good because it's a monthly cycle, right? It's like every
Yeah,
30 days we got to go through this little thing and it and and by producing the consistent results, the consistent using consistent process you produce generally you produce consistent results. You'll produce a report and or a series of reports that can be used to manage the business.
yeah,
And then you can also like that can also lead to being able to ask better questions, such as trying to figure out gross margin issues or use of capital. Um, Facilitates a budget creation and a budget review process. So
yeah,
there's the question the idea that they kind of intertwine, I guess, is the thing that I believe is important with respect to habits and consistency. So one of the concepts is just as a leader, asking what kind of questions is it the leader's responsibility to ask. So one of them is just the concept of like asking smarter questions. So
yeah,
one so
yeah.
one concept would just be like, is the budget aligned with our strategy? Is that like that's one of those things where you go through this process and you do all the monthly close process and you get a result. So then we have to talk about then you can fold that into strategy. So, that's just a one example. Do you have any other ideas about that, the habits and the questions and thinking?
Well, I think that's a really good point too, Chad, is like having the kind of leadership involved in that outside of just like the accounting, I guess, team, right? And asking those questions, right? Even on the monthly basis, and even just as owners and CEOs and leadership teams are just aware of, hey, we're going to go through an audit, right? It's not just hey, accounting team has it. We have a team, but more of their involvement too, what to expect and asking those questions so they are prepared and it's smooth. But then also keeping, it's not a bad practice is to just stay in touch with the auditors and the auditor team for any unforeseen events or any disclosures. Here's what's happening, so they're aware of it because it makes it easier on their side too. Having the information.
Hmm.
So just having some communication. We're talking like maybe quarterly or a couple times a year. Really, nothing on a repetitive basis, but just having that communication and just having the leadership team aware, as well as just knowing what is what's coming down, from the audit perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the other thing about with respect to audits is, do you feel like there's a value added in like one thing is gathering the documentation, another thing is kind of going above and beyond and creating flow charts or educating the auditors on what's going on. Do you have do you have a belief that it's worthwhile to go above and beyond to help the auditors do their job easier?
Well, I think yes and no. I mean, I've been through a couple, and a lot of times, even just being upfront, and honest with them, sometimes they might, I don't say give you the benefit of the doubt, but they might say, "Hey, can you fix this?" Now, and then I'll work on something else, and you fix it, and it's done without, kind of making this an opinion and their findings. So you can kind of get, and unless it's a material big thing, right, where they can't do that, but it's like a two-way street. It's just, you have
Mhm.
your stuff together and, you're communicating with them, being open and honest. And, it's the same way, so a lot of times they'll give you, some breaks here and there, and work with you and not just, hey, this one's a very challenging person and we're just going to put all these findings down and got a lot of work to fix it, things like that. But, so I think it is good practice just to have that relationship with them. You have to be buddies, but at least just having a professional, just open and honest conversation. Yeah. How
Yeah,
about you?
I definitely feel like I've definitely seen a few I guess there's two parts to this. One is the better the documentation is internally about how things are supposed to work and where it's supposed to move, and that you can share with them so that they can understand easier and more quickly the way
Hmm.
things are supposed to be working. So either that's through a flow chart or through some sort of high level process documentation annotation process.
Yep.
And then the other one is yeah, just that that just sort of maintaining the relationship. And I remember there's a funny story about that but it actually wasn't like a financial audit, it was actually a sales tax audit that my dad, my partner at the time was going through with another client. And it was something like one of these crazy things. It was like this distribution warehouse that they had done, like they just sold like maybe a little bit of merchandise on the side and ended up in a sales tax audit that they hadn't declared this tiny amount of sales tax and this tiny amount of merchandise that they sold. And every time we'd go to this like it was like a tax conference, we'd run into this auditor and he's like, "Hey, we gotta, what's up with the audit?" And we're like, "I don't know. Whenever you're ready, we'll do it." It was just kind of like this running joke for like a couple of years where the guy was like, "I got to do it because they told me to do it. I know it's ridiculous, but I don't know. It's just funny. This kind of funny thing where we had this kind of like just kind of going back where we're just like kind of hanging in there. We'll get it done.
Yep.
That kind of attitude. And yeah, it was like you don't have to. Auditors aren't always to be feared, I guess is the thing.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I feel like that's a good story too. By the way, like I feel like even too. I mean, just like on their side too, right? I mean, think about they're going into places that probably are difficult situations. You're like, man, this is hard for them, and they want to probably just get in and move on and kind of keep this train going for other engagements. But yeah, having the good relationship makes it easier for them and you, and it's just an easier process for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then that's also the kind of the classic thing. I remember in the what's the I feel like this was in college. The thing that you're not supposed to do as an auditor is, go out to drinks and oh, like you can take it to a certain point, right? But don't be inviting everyone to drinks or out to the bar afterwards and trying to pull the wool over their eyes and get too
Yeah,
buddy buddy. But yeah, there's
sliding
definitely
things across the table.
yeah. There's definitely a limit to go to. But good stuff. I guess we're just gonna keep this one kind of brief today. Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, it's just I mean, there's never too let's say early to start getting those documentations and just ensuring that the proper closes, having those checklists, having the support, with the kind of the mindset of, hey, if someone you pull someone off the street, they take a look at your books and you have the support that says, here's how we got these numbers every month. And if that's easy and documented, then you're on the right track for that stuff. And just kind of keep that in mind and just having the ducks aligned, should you need one or you go through them. That would be my recommendation. How about you?
Yeah, exactly. The idea, the better documented, the more formalized the process, the easier it is on everybody. Easier it is on the team
Mhm.
to execute, easier to on both operationally and the operations team and the finance team.
Yeah.
And the if it's more standardized, then the easier it is for the team to produce the documentation that the auditor is going to need when and if that is required. But good stuff. And then finally, the last one here we had a point was to communicate with your CPA. Keep them
Yep.
informed as to how the process is going and what's going on and the big events. Anyway, well, I think we'll wrap it up here. And it was good as always to chat with you, Jeff.
Likewise. Thank you guys so much.
All righty, good time. And on to the next day. Ciao.
Yes.